Do you think then there's a healthy amount of tall poppy syndrome to cut down some of that unnecessary ego and bullshit?
That's interesting, because you've always got this American Australian thing where success is more celebrated in America than it is in Australia, and then you've got the Australian thing where they try to cut them down more than they do in America. And then if you try to analyse what all that means and which one's the better, you can argue both ways. So it's a lot of Americans I know that come here, they say, oh, this is wonderful, you know. There's less bullshit and pretence. But then the Australians that get up there, they think, why don't I get the respect that I would have got in America? So, and Americans are the greatest entrepreneurs in the world. So that's part of their culture. They're entrepreneurs. They've got the gun culture. They've got freedom. It's all in their DNA more than it is in ours. We're a unique culture in some respects. Why? Because of the Irish bit in there, the English bit in there, and then years later you start to get the European bit in there, and now you've got the Asian bit coming in, and you know. But in some ways you can look at all of that and say, hey, we got the opportunity to have a superior culture to anyone in the world, because we're more multicultural heading than any other country in the world, and that could be a great advantage. But you know, we have a standard of living that's so high that it's dangerous, and so, you know, I've said to John Howard years ago, why, what do you think our biggest hope is in life in Australia? Oh, well, education and to be the lucky, not the lucky country, the smart country. I said, well, how do you get that? Because so many other countries want to do that. The Asians are telling that story every day of the week, and their kids are belted every night to achieve more and more, and ours are not encouraged much at all. So how the hell are we going to compete with them as time goes on? And well, I think we've got this great opportunity, but I don't share that enthusiasm. I think the thing that we might have going for us that they haven't got, and we see this in our business in Singapore, they're more under the thumb and a narrower corridor. We can see a bigger picture. So if you're brought up in Singapore and you're in business, the Chinese thing is there's a Chinese boss and they're all down here. So when we took over the Chinese company 14, 15 years ago, we go over there and we talk to the people that are running the shops, and we talk to the bosses, and we can see this gap. It's not in our business, there's no gap. We're like them. We go into a shop, the truck driver's, he's the truck driver. We talk to him, we have a beer with him the same as we do the guy that runs the shop. So we tried to get across to them. We want to empower you, bring the business at the top closer to the business, and at the bottom, and make it here. Yes, no trouble. No, couldn't do it, because even though they'd say, yes, I'll do it, yes, I will, they couldn't, because they'd been doing it so long under the thumb. But then as time went on, after about 7 or 8 years, Kate and I'd go over there and talk to them, and we'd be saying, you know something, we're getting there. That guy dresses better now. Have a look at the way he walks. He's got a suit on, he's walking with purpose. And he's more confident when you talk to him. This is an interesting phenomena. We've got a situation here where people that have been under the thumb are finally getting it, that they can make decisions, they are empowered, we're one business. And we're looking at that and thinking, wow. And then we're talking to the family that owned the business before and saying, can you tell the difference between your staff now and what they were? Yes, very interesting. And so in Singapore, in Asia, they haven't got that. I don't think they've got that. It's a breadth of vision or something. It's like, and maybe it's even got to do with sport in schools. You know, like they're not into sport mostly. Just that whole way that you're brought up. Like over the years, I've had a lot of success with people that have been brought up on properties. They've lived all their life on properties, and when they're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they're actually very knowledgeable. You know, when I was 5 or 6, I was setting my own rabbit traps in the bush, you know, and skinning rabbits and selling the skins and all this sort of thing. I was only 5 or 6, little entrepreneur, making a few bucks, and you get up at 5:30 in the morning and go around all your traps and everything, and didn't see your mother till that night at 6 o'clock or whatever, and so you're very independent. And so parents today would never let their kids do what I was doing. So recently I was up at one of my farms, and there's a bloke I know and get on well with, and he's got a little kid. The kid's 4. And so we're talking and everything, and we walked across the creek and up the hill, and I walked in and I saw a little 4-year-old back over there, no one around anyway. And I said to him, "You be right?" He said, "Yeah, bro." And I thought, should I say no and we'll go and get him? I said, "No, when I was 4, that was me." That's strange. And there's not a woman in Australia or a bloke in Australia now who would have left that kid there. You know, he was a 4-year-old. And there was nowhere for the kid to go, nothing to do. He'd go back to the house up there, and there wasn't anyone in the house either. Okay? And then we came back 3 hours later. The kid was there. No problem. No one would do that today. They'd be frightened a snake would eat him, bite him, or a wombat would swallow him, or he'd drown, or he'd hurt himself, or someone would come and kill him, right? So that independence would certainly not be out there in the Asian country. They all live in cities. And now in Sydney, you know, like you know with mothers and fathers today, their little kids like, "Where is he? Where is she? I haven't seen him for 30 seconds." You know? So there's that independence is all gone. So you've got to try and, you know, so when you get people that have had that sort of upbringing, you've got people that are sort of, they're out there more independent, and then more liable perhaps to look at the big wide world and try and think outside the square, maybe. And that's what you need, people that'll, "Oh, maybe you could do it this way, or maybe you could do it that way." But if you've been shielded all your life and you're 20 years of age, how the hell are you going to get out of the box? Maybe you can, but it's going to be a lot harder. If you've been out of the box all your life, would you just, you know, I think you've got an advantage. It might be more important than anything else you can do. That early upbringing from 0 to 10.